Welcome to the Wildlife Wire. I'm Mark Searles,
And I'm Samantha Miller.
and this is your source for wildlife news and the people that make it.
Hello, and welcome back to the Wildlife Wire, everybody. Samantha Miller here with Mark Searles and world-renowned photographer Joel Sartore. Joel is an award-winning photographer, speaker, author, conservationist, and the 2018 National Geographic Explorer of the Year. We have been completely immersed here at the Wildlife Wire in the Photo Ark, which has been his latest work, and will be an exhibit soon that we'll talk a little bit more about. He's photographed over 18,000 species around the world. And as someone that works in biodiversity conservation and advocates for this every day, it's so exciting to see pictures of so many different animals as individuals and get to see species I may never get to see in the wild. We're really thrilled to have you. So welcome to the podcast, Joel.
Thank you. Good to be here.
It's really, it's an honor to have you as a guest. And I know that your movement on the Photo Ark started many years ago, right? In the Nebraska Zoo. How did you come up with this concept? And were you ever, intimidated by this grand idea you had?
No, because it didn't start out grand, Samantha. It wasn't an idea much at all, other than just as a way to get out of the house on the days when my wife was feeling well enough. My wife was, she had breast cancer and she was being treated for that about 22 years ago now, and our children were very tiny, and I had to quit being a globe-trotting National Geographic guy, and I did so. Stay home with her for about a year, and the Lincoln Children's Zoo was just a mile from my house, and on days when she felt good and the kids were in school, I would just go down the street and take a few pictures, and then I thought, most animals will fit in the palm of your hand.
Yeah.
And so, but we can't see them, they live in muddy water or high up in trees or whatever. And Geographic, they did plenty of conservation stories and still do, but the animals generally are charismatic megafauna, tigers, elephants, that kind of thing, rhinos. So with what I wanted to do, I just thought, well, I'd done enough endangered species work to realize that these small animals need to have an equal voice. So I just went to the children's zoo and told them I just wanted to do animals that were in a clean environment, small, but still you can really look them in the eye. There's no distractions at all without size comparisons at all on these backgrounds. These animals were all the same size. And that was really appealing to me, to see that the mouse was as big as an elephant, that a tiger beetle was as big as a tiger. They're all the same size. So I just started out with a naked mole rat on a zoo cutting board in the zoo kitchen. It was just a white plastic board, and did a few frogs that day. But the first one was a naked mole rat just a mile from my house in the Lincoln Children's Zoo. And that, at that time, I didn't know it would lead to anything. I was just doing something to keep busy. You can't go 100 miles an hour being a geographic photographer in the field to nothing, and just like not have any work at all. So once my wife was kind of out of the woods and feeling better, I started doing that. And then when she was kind of almost back to normal, I started going to the Omaha's Henry Doorly Zoo and Aquarium. They had over 600 species, and then went to Kansas City and Denver and Oklahoma City and places I thought I could drive to in a day or two quite easily. And next thing you know, I thought, well, I think I could probably do the animals that are in the nation's zoos and aquariums pretty easily if I just apply myself. So that's how I got started. Was just very simple, but I didn't know it'd turn into anything. I was just doing it to shoot stock pictures of animals that I thought needed some attention.
So when in that process did that switch change from doing it and just kind of because it was an opportunity to I've got something here?
Oh, years down the road, I always liked the idea of it from the start, because 80%, to this day, 80% or more of the animals have never been seen by most people. People don't know they exist. They see what's in zoos. And that's big, charismatic animals, anacondas and rhinos, bears, but they don't really know about all these little animals that really run the world: ants, bees, worms, snakes, aquatic invertebrates. We do 6 classes of animals. We do mammals and birds, of course, reptiles, amphibians, fish, and invertebrates. And the invertebrates really run the world, both aquatic invertebrates, everything from corals to sponges to insects, arachnids. And so I just did it for a few years thinking it's cool that I'm doing this. And National Geographic had a stock photo agency and they would take the pictures and 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 pretty soon the magazine, they started calling me again, realizing that Kathy was doing well. And so I was given a chance to do a story on the Endangered Species Act, which I thought was great. Well, maybe I can do that partly in the wild and also partly as photo ark pictures. And then they gave me a story on the amphibian decline. Same way, kind of a hybrid where we show environmental factors, chytrid fungus affecting wildlife, and people trying to breed these animals back in labs to save them from extinction, but also just do the straight portraits. And the project came along at a good time. They had a design director there, Bill Maher, who liked that look, and it gave him something different to put in the magazine, these clean portraits. And so it kind of took off from there, but it was a long time before we even called it the Photo Ark. It was years of doing it. But I just thought it was the right thing to do. And how else are you going to get some endangered bee or a lizard that nobody's ever heard of? How else are you going to get them into the magazine unless you do it like this? They're too small, really, to just walk up to in the wild and do a wide angle picture of.
Yeah, I have to say that your amphibian portraits and your rodent portraits were my two favorites, as a through line throughout the entire photo arc, where it seemed like you really captured these little guys in a way that most people don't see them. And amphibians are on one of the steepest declines, correct, as far as biodiversity loss
Yeah, they're
goes?
pretty bad off. Yeah, that fungus is going to take out quite a few of them. And also they're very sensitive. They take in toxins through their skin. They can't handle sedimentation in the streams where they lay their eggs. They really need a cool environment, a cool, moist environment. They have to have water to breed. They really are a good environmental barometer for us, and they're in very precipitous decline right now. But so are a lot of animals. So freshwater mussels, that's probably our most endangered group of animals that depend on water for their life cycle. They live in water and they are really against it. A lot of our mussel fauna, and they just look like rocks to people. It's very hard to get people to care, but they're amazing, and they filter our water. They keep our water clean. They're very important to our own health and survival. And that's kind of the message that I wanted to get across to people, is that these species keep our planet in balance. We can't live without them, quite literally, like ants. E.O. Wilson himself told me, I said, we can't live without insects, right? He said, oh yeah, we can't live without ants. We have to have them. But most people just think about fighting with each other, what's on television, who won the ball game. Photo Ark's basically a long-term public education campaign to get people to care about something that really matters, which is, to us, the future of life on Earth. That's why we do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And in the forward, Harrison Ford had mentioned that your work really tells the story of the importance of the individual threads there, and how each species is an individual thread connected together to weave this fabric of life
That's
that we
right.
all participate in.
Yeah.
And for me, my favorite photograph within the book was the Bengal slow loris, just in the hand like
Mhm.
that, to
Mhm.
see that species up close. Can you tell us a story of one of these individuals that was really memorable to you?
Sure. wanted to mention also, like fruits and vegetables. If you like eating fruits and vegetables, you better like pollinating insects, bees, butterflies, ants. I mean, people say, what good is it all the time? Well, if you like to eat, it's pretty important. Um, so in terms of an animal that was memorable, people say, well, what's your favorite? And I always say, well, the next one. But the case of this, I mean, in terms of something that was memorable, probably the most memorable was Nabire, which is a northern white rhino, and they're down to very few now, just a mother and daughter in a pen in Kenya right now. But the she was number 5. There were 5 left on Earth at the time, and she was at a zoo in the Czech Republic. And animals down to 5 individuals, that's really tough. And they have frozen embryos that they can still try to bring the species back in very good surrogates, the southern white rhino, and hopefully that will work. Um, but when she just kind of laid down and went to sleep at the end of our shoot. She's an old gal at the time, and we went into her enclosure to get our big black velvet curtain out of there that we used for a black background. I just kind of put my hand on her back and felt her breathing, and it's a very emotional thing and a sad thing, and so if we don't even treat rhinos with enough respect to save them, we gonna save anything else? Rhino's a pretty charismatic animal, big and gorgeous, and something that kids see in books their parents read to them at bedtime. Like they're a very, very popular animal. And so it just really gave me pause. The entire experience of being around an animal that could go extinct, that big and that glorious. What will we do when it goes extinct? Well, we'll write up a few editorials and lament its loss. But really, we are primates. We really like mirrors. We love this. Yo, we love that. We love that. So are we going to stare at ourselves into our phones all the way down? Or will we be smart enough to realize that we do need to save forests and oceans that are not strained of all the fish, and we need to save prairies and tundra, and we need to quit throwing all this carbon into the air and overheating everything? I don't know whether will or not. I don't know, but I do know there's this T.S. Eliot quote that I really like, which is, ours is but for the trying, the rest is not our business. And to me, that means, we're doing all we can. Team Photo Ark, we're funded by National Geographic. We've got a great megaphone, tell the world about species and the people that care about them and their habitats. We're doing our absolute best. And we've got a real shot at making things better. But at the end of the day, if people just care about fighting with each other and looking in the mirror as they do it, well, we tried.
Yeah, it's really interesting as you were talking about the mirror, and I think that is a reason why we treat some species that are more similar or maybe have similar physical characteristics or behaviors to humans, that we immediately kind of connect with them. And take for instance a snake that moves completely differently, that
Mhm.
has a very stoic look to them. They kind of can produce kind of this fear,
Right, sure.
but also I think thinking as a child, and Samantha and I both have 8-year-olds, and they are absorbed in the things that are different, and always exploring. And my daughter goes into the garden to look for all the little critters that are out there that often as adults that we pass by. So do you feel that there's leverage there on those species that we can't immediately identify with, to provide that curiosity to
Oh,
understand
yeah,
more?
I think so. I mean, my parents gave me a book on birds in the late 60s that I just basically looked at every day, and it had a section on extinction in the back. And I was amazed by that. The story of the passenger pigeon, the last one named Martha that died at the Cincinnati Zoo in 1914, and how it died and why. And I was really taken with that. And I've thought about that my whole life, that bird. And that book did that for me. And so I personally think that taking your children to a good zoo or aquarium where they can, or just on a hike where they can see and smell and hear wild animals, is a really big, important thing. If nature is reduced to just this, not going to go very well. Most kids are urban. They didn't grow up playing in a stream or a body of water or prairie. They're inside. They're looking at screens all day. And this is the kind of the last child in the woods syndrome a little bit. How do we get people who are growing up now who are not really allowed outside, not unsupervised out in the woods or near a river or stream or pond? There's none to go to. Um, how do you even get kids hooked? Well, going to a good zoo or a good aquarium, providing books, providing reading materials for people. If they are online, make sure it's productive. These are about the best that parents can do. But we really don't want the world to get in such bad shape that people come running and screaming to politicians, save us. It's gonna be too late, you know? So we really want to try to lessen the impact of extinction now and know that future generations will be making all the decisions. These kids, your 8-year-olds, they will be among the group that's making the decisions, whether or not to bulldoze that, whether or not to plant native plants in their office compound, their office park, whether or not to invest in something that's good or bad for the environment. These are all things that are really vitally important. So yeah, it's educating children is a giant job. If they are raised by parents that literally don't care at all, they won't care. You know, I have good friends from high school, their parents just cared about Nebraska football, not much else. So as adults, they care about Nebraska football. Nothing wrong with that, but you do have to have people that really, really care about what's going on in the environment and ways to lessen the impact of extinction and climate change as well. These are big deals and they really do affect our future. Food does not come from the grocery store, not really. Water doesn't just come out of the tap. It's a process and we need a stable climate to produce all that, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And those corn huskers, you can't fault them in Nebraska, but
No, no, certainly not. But one of my good friends from college, one of my
Mhm.
college roommates, that was his thing. That was his bonding time with his dad. His mom was really into it. That's what he talks about and cares about. We're very good friends. He knows
Yeah.
how I feel. But in terms of the environment, it's just not top of mind. It's not on his mind at all. You know, turn up the air conditioning. It's hotter out. Turn up the air conditioning. You know, it's like that. So
Yeah.
we all come from different places and for different reasons. And I'm not knocking anybody. I'm just saying that the bridge is out. If we
Mhm.
keep driving down this highway, and that is every year is going to get hotter, we have to reduce carbon emissions. We have to really watch how we treat remaining habitats on this planet. All of it. It's really important just to plant native plants in your yard and quit pouring poison all over the ground. If you love birds and you're pouring insecticide on your lawn, you are really fighting yourself. Your birds feed their babies insects, not seeds. So
Yeah.
if you want birds, plant native plants, nectar bearing plants to draw in insects. You'll see more birds, and it's just more fun to show an 8-year-old beautiful butterflies and bees on beautiful flowers in your yard. We've done that at our office, where we have signs that say prairie in progress, why plant prairie, see the birds, you know, like these different signs that as people walk their dogs past, they see why we're doing it. We mow a neat little border around it so it looks tended. But these are things that are not hard to do and they actually save you money. For example, if you were to talk to your city or your county or your state in terms of mowing along roadways, I had a friend in the state of Oklahoma that over many years convinced the state of Oklahoma not to mow their right roadways as much, you know, along the side of the road shoulders. And that saved a lot of ground nesting birds. They were mowing right in the middle of the spring when ground nesting birds were trying to bring off young. Mow it once a year instead of keeping it like a golf course, and you'll have a lot more habitat, millions more acres in the state, almost a million more acres in the state, just by doing that. And it saved the state millions of dollars. That's a win-win. So there's
Yeah.
lots of stuff people can do.
Absolutely. And I think that, one of the things your photographs do really well for those kids that are so distracted, right? They've got things pulling at their attention
Right.
everywhere, is that it just focuses on the animal. And that use of the negative space, I think, really pulls a kid into that when they look at your pictures. Was
Hopefully.
that by intent or?
Yeah, we just wanted to isolate them so we could get them lit well. So
Mhm.
if they're in a confined space, we can light them well with true white light to show their true colors. We can show there's great beauty and intelligence there when we look them in the eye because we're primates and we really like eye contact. So looking them in the eye is a big deal to get a connection. And then no size comparisons. So the ant is the same size as an anteater. You know, they're all the same size. So we're really big on showing the little things and they come off as big and glorious and worth preserving. To me, they're all kind of works of art, these animals. And boy, when a painting gets stolen out of some art gallery in Europe, you hear about it around the world, but we would let any of these beautiful things go extinct on our watch. That's just not acceptable. It's just not.
And with your work, your life's work as a photographer, and the photo arc, and all of your projects that you've done, you've clearly demonstrated the connection between photography and conservation, and it's something near and dear to my heart as a wildlife photographer as well, who I am stuck on a, a critter of middle size, in that of the coyote. And
Mhm.
I I did I have lots of questions to go down with photography and conservation, but uh, the image projected on the Vatican of the coyote pups,
Mhm.
how did that come to be? And did you have to explain, who the coyote is, to members of the Vatican?
No, no, that was that Luis Ahoyos, who directed the Oscar-winning film The Cove about dolphin slaughter in Japan. His project after that was to project animals onto buildings like the Empire State Building, the United Nations building, and then he got permission from Pope Francis to project onto the Vatican. And so he wanted work, and I allowed it, and it was part of a package of pictures that ran, and it was lovely. Those coyote pups were in the care of Nebraska Wildlife Rehab, and they were very rambunctious. I think there were four of them, right? And they were very curious about everything. And so the lady who was the director and her helper basically gathered those pups up on this white background and kind of sat them up and pushed them together. So they stayed there, one on each side. And then we did one, two, three, and they'd take their hands off. And we did that two or three times and just get them before they all ran off in different directions every time, like they were spring loaded. So it took a little bit, but I think we did that, I don't know, two or three times and got a picture. The flashes freeze movement very well. But yeah, no explaining to the Pope. I never met the Pope. But they ran big on the side of the Vatican, on the side of St. Peter's Basilica, and he was sitting there watching it. From what I understand, from the papal apartment, we could see a little silhouette of somebody sitting up against the curtain there.
But, amazing. Yeah, I was so thrilled when I saw that image. As an absolute lover of coyotes, um, you the importance of a single image, and the power that can be derived from that. Has there ever been an instance where someone, shared with you that that one was something that took me to action?
Well, last week I got a note, I got a letter, an email from a woman that runs the red handfish breeding program in Tasmania, which was our 18,000th species. And she said that she was delighted that we featured that. It's this little bitty red or orange fish. They come in different colors, but there's more in one room, their breeding center, at 250 of them than there are in the wild now, by far. So it's really up against it. And their captive breeding efforts are really what stand between that fish and extinction. And she wrote and said that when we featured that, it got them global attention at a time when their funding was set to run out. And now they've gotten all sorts of offers of support from around the world. So that's tremendous. That's tremendous. We've heard about in a few other cases about photo art coverage that's led to more money coming in or more attention turned to an animal that helped to save it. And I'm grateful for that. It doesn't happen very often, doesn't happen near often enough, but we just keep our heads down and we keep working, we keep going. And my son Cole is 32 and he goes with me on all the foreign shoots. We're going to Bolivia here on Sunday for a couple of weeks. And we just keep our heads down and keep going. And then we turn in these hard drives of videos and stills to our staff, which in turn send it on the Geographic and they send it out to the world. And We just hope that people care enough to want to do something about it. They want to learn. People can go to my website, which is joelsartore.com, and look at the frequently asked questions page if they want to see what they can do from their own homes. But there's so much we can do. Just right off the bat, putting little white stickers of animals or dots on our windows to keep birds from dying, hitting the glass. That's big, really effective. Um, Make you feel better about yourself too. We've done that on our cabin here in Minnesota and our office building in Lincoln. Um, just a million things. If you care about birds, keep your cat inside your house. Even declawed cats are very efficient predators. Keep your cat inside. Just Man, you name it. There's a lot of ideas on our frequently asked question page about what people can do. I mean, there's dozens of them listed there, but you don't have to be a globetrotting geographic guy. You just start right in your own backyard. It's a tremendous thing. And like Photo Ark is my day job, right? But when I come home, I go and look at the prairie we planted in our office front yard, and I marvel at the goldfinches eating the sunflowers that right before I left on this trip, and yeah, I just think it's very satisfying to know that you're doing something personally, and that you're in your activities. When your neighbors see that, they might want to do it too. They might really get into it. Like, well, why can't I have butterflies here? Or you don't spend very much time mowing your lawn because most of your lawn is native plants and it looks good. Maybe I shouldn't do that either. Yeah, maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe this is a better way to go.
Yeah, I think you're spot on with that. And because, when we're thinking about the photo arc and all of the species on this planet, it can be overwhelming
Yes,
and
it can be.
invoke some paralysis almost.
Yeah,
There's nothing that why could I do anything? Like how is that possible? It's
right,
beyond me. But those
right.
little examples that you gave do prove, you know, one person can have their impact, and then maybe their neighbor, and then maybe
Oh
their
yeah, 100%. You do. In fact, it's just as satisfying to do something locally. Lincoln Parks and Rec. I live in Lincoln, Nebraska. Lincoln Parks and Rec runs the city parks. They've done rain gardens, those little catchments for water when it comes in that helps with storm sewer, not overwhelming our storm sewer system in Lincoln. They've planted more aquatic vegetation there. We have all sorts of wildlife that come into these things. They planted native prairie and wildflowers all over the city. They're exceptional, and it saves them on mowing. It's a big deal. Not only does it make the air smell better from traffic exhaust because these prairies tend to absorb that, it saves them on mowing. It's increased their bottom line. The same with the county not mowing as often along our roadways. The same for the state. Another thing people can do, which is a big deal, they don't realize it. We have a little sign on our office door that we want people to keep shut, keep air conditioning in. It says, want to save a walrus, close the door, meaning keep the cool air in here. We had to use carbon to do it. We had to use burn carbon to cool this office space. Let's keep it in here, right? They say in the wintertime, save a walrus, put on a sweater. Why put on a sweater? Because it means you can lower the temperature of your office and not put as much carbon in the air. But you also make money because you're not keeping your house like a greenhouse in the winter, and in the summer your house isn't ice cold. You've gotten smart and you've saved money insulating your home. We have an old historic home that we've restored in Lincoln, and we insulated the attic first year we lived there. So we had a few electricity bills and gas bills to know how it was for the first year, let's say. And that insulation paid for itself in 7 months. And it has been saving money ever since for 26 years. Think of the thousands of dollars we've made. So there's a lot of these things that are good for the environment and really good for your pocketbook. And in this old world, if it pays, it stays, right? So
absolutely. My
we're
my
always
mom,
looking, we're
I
always
call
looking, we're always looking for that.
yeah,
That's right.
I call my mom an accidental environmentalist because it was you didn't grow up in a barn. There's five lights burning in the kitchen and no one's in there and so forth. And I'm like,
That's right.
yeah, you're saving money and you're doing the right thing
That's right.
for the
That's
world as well.
exactly
So,
right. And your mom does that, right?
oh yeah,
Good for her. That's outstanding. Yeah, I can't stand it when people leave lights on or
yeah,
doors open to outside if it's too hot or too cold, and we've conditioned the interior space. That's just waste of money, waste of
Yeah,
carbon.
absolutely. And so at the beginning, we were talking about using the phone as a mirror, and
Yeah,
selfies everywhere. Uh,
sure.
and and I often present on photo advocacy, and in Colorado, we're a state that likes to go out there and achieve in nature, and whether
Hmm.
that's downhill skiing or
Hmm.
mountain biking or ultra running, all of these different activities. and
Right.
and I'll be on a trail, looking for birds, coyotes, whatever it may be, and people are blowing right by me. And
Hmm.
confession, I used to be a bike racer and runner. I
Hmm.
I I know that feeling, and what
Right.
it takes to be successful
Sure.
in physical sports. But there's the alternative to achieving in nature, and that is being in nature. And we all have cameras now with us all day,
Right.
every day.
Right.
And so what kind of advice would you give to someone to say, hey, turn that camera the other direction, slow down a little bit, and the world, see what's right outside of your door.
Yeah. Well, Mark, one thing, it lowers your blood pressure to be out watching birds, doesn't it? For me, it does. It's like very calming. It's not time wasted. It feels like time well spent. I'm not a birder, but this morning we had a pileated woodpecker that was calling to its mate up in a tree. And I was like, I just dropped everything and went right out and just watched it for a while. They're not very big, but they are a tremendous sound in the woods here. And the the time that I spend where I'm just quiet and still and sitting there, to me, it's really important. I think that if we're constantly needing to rush off in a big cloud of noise and fumes to get to the next thing, we'll never be satisfied. Really, I mean, to me, like being satisfied is I had a college professor who taught me quite a bit, and he said, really the secret to life is just work that you like and somebody who loves you. And so I think that is really kind of all a lot of people need, beyond the ability to feed and clothe and shelter themselves. But I think nature is a tremendous reservoir of strength for us and calming for us. And beyond that, as a guy who's just done nothing but nature for a long time in terms of its practical uses, that we cannot live without it. We just can't, and we don't see that because we drive to work in an air conditioned car, and we get out into an air conditioned office, and we don't really feel that or understand it. It's not our concern, but nothing stays the same. Everything changes, and we're seeing the changes right now. Will we be smart enough to recognize this and kind of just start to do the right thing? The beautiful thing is that most of the animals I've photographed for the photo ark are still there. They're just waiting for us. They're out there in greatly diminished numbers, but they're out there, and they'll come roaring back if we just let them. If we just set aside some places in the ocean that we don't strain of all the fish, if we just make sure the forests are left standing. You know, one of the things that I like to mention to people is that it's not just the animals, it's the plants, the rainforest and the Amazon, and around the equator in general, like in Gabon and Congo. Those are a big deal. And, people that are uninitiated will say, well, why is that a big deal, what they do in Brazil? Well, because those rainforests don't just provide us with air, with oxygen to breathe, they cool the planet some, but the big deal is they regulate the rainfall cycles on the planet. And so where I'm from in Nebraska and all through the world, crops generally aren't irrigated. They are dry land farmed, at least these cereal grains that we like. And it takes a really delicate, precise dance. You have to have moisture in the soil in the spring to push the seeds up, and then continued rains to get the crops to really push up out of the ground, intermittent rains through the warm months to grow the crop, and the rains have to abate in the fall so that we can get in and dry the grain and harvest it. Well, if you mess all that up, and the rains don't come at all, or they come in massive flood amounts, that is really, really a big deal problem for us. And the people that don't have the means to pay for increased food prices hurt because of that. That's just one consequence, but you know, I do. I'm a very hopeful person, and I am a big believer in humanity as wanting to help. You see it all the time in the way that people give to charity or rush in when there's been a natural disaster somewhere. How can we help? They just don't know what to do when it comes to the environment because it's such a big, big arena. What do I do? Where do I go? How can I help? They don't even have a clue, and I don't blame them. It's complicated, but it's it's an exciting time in that we can reach the entire world, and we kind of read people's minds in a way. With social, we can literally see what they like, what they share, what they bring to the table, how they see things. It's a great way to it's just a great way to communicate with the world. Not just bad, negative things, but people and corporations that are doing good things. So I think it's a very exciting time to be alive, and it's actually the best time to ever be in conservation is right now. But it starts with people knowing what's at stake and caring. That is the big part of it. And that's what the Photo Ark is a decades long public education campaign on behalf of nature. We try to speak for as many animals as we can while we can. And we'll see if people care, if they care enough at least.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think you're certainly getting your answers and in a positive way, and that you have inspired millions to start caring or to even know what some of these critters are. And I will shut up here in a second and let Sam jump on, but I did want to push back on something that you had said a minute ago, because I've been putting a lot of thought into this of like the benefits of nature and lowering blood pressure and stuff. And
Mm,
I have started to think of it the opposite way of we that's assuming the status quo as being indoors in front of a screen out of
mhm,
nature. But
mhm,
really, when we are in nature, that's where we are supposed to be.
mhm,
And that indoors in front of a screen is increasing our blood pressure and reducing our mental
mhm,
well-being. And the in nature is not reducing blood pressure or increasing our mental well-being. If you're following what I'm saying here, is that we've created these distractions,
mhm.
and the status quo should actually be outside, taking it slow
I
in
think so
nature.
too. Yeah, I think so too. We'll see if enough people believe that. But yeah, I agree. Totally.
No, my question was really about kind of bringing it back to, what you've said about conservation can take place in your own backyard, your own front yard.
Mhm,
Having grown up in a more urban area, that was how I would retreat into nature, right? Just by going into my backyard, and now being in a more rural area, there's a lot more activity going on around me, or at
mhm.
least it feels like it. But what I loved is that in your book, you even had, a Virginia possum with her babies on her,
Right.
and it made those species relatable. Those are species that in an urban area we may see
Mhm.
every day.
Right.
Um, and I think you've mentioned this a little bit too, is that, biodiversity right now is more important than ever. So to bring it back home, when people are hotter, look around where we can do things about that, or smoke in the air, or in Colorado we have a historic drought right now,
Mhm.
and it's really impacting the environment. And in your book you say, when we save species we save ourselves.
Right.
What does that mean to you?
It means that Jane Goodall came out to Nebraska years ago, and I asked her a question, why have hope? She said, well, why not? Without hope, you have nothing. With hope, you've at least got something and the chance to make tomorrow better. And she used the Platte River as an illustration. It was right outside the window. We met at the Roe Audubon Sanctuary. There was a small group of us. She used to come out there to watch the cranes every year, the sandhill crane migration. And she said, think about, we tend to talk a lot about the endangered species that use the Platte River, the pallid sturgeon and the whooping crane and the piping plover and the interior least tern. But let's say that river goes dry. Forget about the endangered species for a bit. What are people going to do when there's no more water left in the river? And so that's a very basic statement, but it's very true. We have to have the same things that nature does for us, for ourselves to carry on. And we really do need to make sure that people are at least aware of it. You know, if they're aware of all these problems and they still choose to ignore it, well, I guess that's their business. But if they never even knew there was a problem that was real and that could be addressed and could be fixed, if because people of our generation didn't stop to teach them that, that's on us, right? So it's, to me, I never get bummed out, never get down about it. I just think there's a lot of work to do. I get up every day excited, ready to go. And just to know that hopefully what I do matters some, if you make the world a better place with your short time on earth, that's a life well lived, in my opinion. And I think a lot of people get kind of stuck, and they're going maybe to a job they don't like. And a lot of people don't have a choice, but I had good parents who told me I could do whatever I wanted to do. And I told them I wanted to be a National Geographic photographer. And they said, well, yeah, if you're persistent, you could. So I believed them. A lot of kids don't have that. They don't have that kind of support from their parents who give them that unconditional feedback. But really, the future is literally in our hands going forward. We can now control the atmosphere in a negative way. We can control whether any trees are standing by the end of the next century. We can control whether the oceans are hot and acidic. We can control a lot. Will we care? I don't know. It won't be boring. I can tell you that. That's about all I can tell you, though. Everything changes and it won't be boring. But I know that during the pandemic, I was very heartened by the fact that I couldn't go anywhere, but I was coming back. It was in the, early morning, still dark out, couldn't sleep very well. When am I going to be able to get back on the road, Well, I was home for a couple of years. I noticed that the porch lights on my front porch were just swirling with color and activity from all these insects that come in. And because I couldn't sleep, it was like 4:30 in the morning. There they all were. And I thought, well, they're all coming to me. So I just did insects most of the time. And I was amazed that even in my home near downtown Lincoln, we put up white sheets and different wavelengths of light. We had an amazing diversity, over 100 species of insects just in my backyard, including dragonflies, which I never literally see. It was really heartening that these animals are out there and they're waiting for us to give them a little bit of a break. We can do that. It's not going to be a hardship. But enough people just need to know that there's even a problem. I doubt people even know that we're in the middle of the insect apocalypse, where we're seeing this mass decline of insects and birds go right down with them. I bet they don't even know that. Well, that's the job of this show and of these books. Try to teach people the importance of all life forms, no matter how lowly. They all count. They all matter.
Absolutely, Joel. And I really appreciate that. And I have to say, you're a very adaptive mammal and with your photography, and transforming during COVID to bugs, and transforming while your wife was sick to zoos. And I'm so impressed by your resiliency. I had one last question, unless Mark is dying to ask something, because sometimes he is. So Mark, did you have one before my final question?
I mean, I have like 37,000,
You're out of time, Mark.
I will yield my time.
Great. Well, I would love for you to tell us a little bit about your new exhibit within the National Geographic Museum of Exploration, and tell our listeners where they can find you and engage with the conservation work that your photography is doing.
Sure, great. So the Photo Ark Animals of Earth exhibit is up at the National Geographic through the turn of the year. It is basically an immersive exhibit where you see thousands and thousands of animals. They kind of come up at random all over the walls and even on the floors and everywhere. You can see how the process is done. You can hear the story of the Photo Ark. It's really nicely done. It's really nice. And that's at National Geographic's new Museum of Exploration in downtown DC at 16th and M, basically. They also published my books. And so the new Photo Ark Animals of Earth book is out. And people can get signed copies if they come to my website, joelsartore.com. And what else can I say? I'm very lucky to have Geographic sponsor me. We have a real platform to talk to the world about conservation and show this work. We give the pictures away to every zoo that I work, every aquarium, every wildlife rehabber, and we can give them lift through the Geographic's social and books and exhibitions. We reach something like almost 500 million people just through social alone, through all the social channels. So that's a real chance to tell people about the good work that others are doing. And I'm very grateful for that. So I guess that would be the big thing is, again, come to my website, frequently asked questions, look at what you can do in your own backyard. If you and peruse the store page and look around a little bit, if they see a book they want, great, happy to sign it for them. And just above all, think what you do matters, what your life is about matters, but you really have to think about what you truly love. What do you love? What do you want to save? What do you want to do? Think about that. It doesn't have to be nature. It could be food insecurity or homelessness. It could be city parks or trails. It could be any number of things. Just think about what you love and then go to work and stick with it for a long time. Be persistent and if you're starting out in life, be so good that they can't afford to ignore you. And that is, find a group that's doing the kind of work that you want to do in your life, and then volunteer for them. And then if you stick around with them long enough and you're invaluable to them, the next time they have a paid position open, they're going to hire you because they know that you're a good egg who put in your time. So that's what I've done, and it works. It's just a matter of putting the hours in. It really is.
Yeah, absolutely. And did you want to share a little bit about Photo Ark bodies too before we go?
Sure. Yeah, that is a children's book. We think it's important to get children into nature, of course. And these children's books, these are for little kids. They're laminated so the kids can spill drinks on them, whatever.
Perfect.
Juice. And this one's about bodies. They're published in Spanish and English, as are a lot of these books. We've done colors and numbers. So we just think that and we have an 18-month-old granddaughter that comes around to our house, and she goes straight for those books every time. She loves those. That's the first thing she's got to do. And she does, every time she visits, she goes to those books again and again. She can't get enough of them. So if we can get them hooked early, that's a really good thing. It sticks with them all their lives. It did for me with the animal book my parents got me. So it works, but they have to know about it. They can't, people will save what they love, and they won't love it if they've never even met it. So that's our job. That's what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for coming on the Wildlife Wire, Joel. We appreciate you. We've loved this conversation, and we'll link to everything that you talked about today in our show notes too. So folks can grab it from there. And we look forward to following your additional species. I'm sure you're not anywhere close to done yet.
Nope, I don't think so. We'll keep going. Appreciate your time, guys, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
You bet.
This has been an episode of the Wildlife Wire with me, Mark Searles, and my co-host, Samantha Miller. Thank you for listening.